Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 17 of season 3 of Black Writers Read. My name is Nicole Young Martin, and I am the founder, producer, and host for the series. We have now reached the month of June, which is full of abundance and opportunities to celebrate so many great things. Happy Pride, Immigrant Heritage Month, Black Music Appreciation Month, and more importantly, summertime, which New England, for folks who are just joining us for the first time, I'm based in Northern Connecticut, has yet to receive the memo, as only just a couple of days ago it was 90 plus degrees and extremely humid, with today being in like the high 50s, low 60s. And I'm like, when I go outside, I have to put on like tons of clothing. But that's okay. I like spring weather anyway. So let's go ahead and get today's conversation started. I have been so excited to bring on and host today's guest, as him and I have been in conversation for some time. Black Writers Read showcases, celebrates, and honors the words, work, and traditions of Black writers from across the country, across genres, across experiences in the African diaspora. Black Writers Read is a behind-the-scenes conversation into the craft and what it means to create as a Black author in today's society. Since starting the series during the summer of 2020, we've hosted almost 60 authors representing various genres, including children's books, young adult fiction, poetry, urban creative nonfiction, memoir, history, horror, essays, food, and culture from around the globe, including Western Massachusetts, Maryland, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., Florida, upstate New York, New York's Hudson Valley, Philadelphia, Vermont, Cambridge, Massachusetts, Chicago, Virginia, Indiana, Portugal, Arizona, Costa Rica, and St. Martin. Today, I finally add New York City. We welcome Itua Uduebo. Born in Lagos, Nigeria, now residing in New York, New York, Itua graduated from Georgetown University with a degree in international politics. He is currently working in the financial technology industry. Itua's writing journey began in 2016, and to date, he has several essays, articles, freeform poems, and short stories published online and in print. Itua's work explores multiple genres, including new adult fiction, urban literature, science fiction, thrillers, politics, racial justice, culture, and global affairs. Itua is currently working on his second novel manuscript and always looking to take on new creative challenges. Today, he will read an excerpt from his debut novel, Parade of Streetlights, which is scheduled for release on Tuesday. Prior to us coming on, we talked about his book launch party, which was hosted in his honor last night. Parade of Streetlights is a deeply personal and introspective debut novel told in vignettes. Parade of Streetlights is a deeply personal and introspective novel that features characters who are working through many personal absurdities. Published by Reading Furiously, this is a novel about the choices we make, the ways we restrict ourselves needlessly, and the freedom of embracing the authentic pursuit of happiness. Kola's voice is a welcome addition to the literary canon, and his story will stay with you long after the last page is finished. For those who are new to Black Writers Read, here's the format of our show. Itua will read from Parade of Streetlights, then we chat about his book and writing career. If time remains at the end of the conversation, we'll open it up to Q&A with those who are joining us today. We have viewers joining us from both Facebook and YouTube. If you have a question, please feel free to include it in the comment section on the platform where you're joining us from today. I will compile the questions and either pose them to our guests following our conversation or insert them during an appropriate time within our conversation. I'd now like to bring Itua onto the virtual stage. Hello, sir.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yes.
I'm excited to be here. Really excited to share some of my writing with you and talk to these questions.
Really Yay. So I will go ahead and turn it over to you. Have fun reading.
Will do. This is from a chapter in Parade of Streetlights called Withdrawal. And here we go. Art becoming realized always creates a temporary rift in space and time. It can feel small at first, or maybe it's so small it's negligible. But once the eerie feeling of recollection sets in, it's something you can't stop. The longer you sit in the moment, the closer you get to accepting the ridiculousness of interpreting reality through fiction. And once you accept the comedy, the tragedy can set in. In total, Abby had seen Rent about 3 times on Broadway, 12 times in the film version, and a few thousand in her own visualized adaptation. The soundtrack has been on repeat for the majority of college, culminating in the selection of La Vie Boheme as her team name in the annual theater program. It was her show, that one special show every actor has, despite the complete, clear impossibility of being true. They fully believe was written for them and them only. It was a tale of love in the face of despair, the necessity of art in a dying world, independence, revolution, pettiness, shame, dignity, hope, and the omnipresence of failure. All deeply human sensations, and all swirling in Abby's head as she put pen to paper to fill out her rent check. The whole setup at its core was medieval. Their landlord insists on having tenants deliver checks to his unit on the top floor, like peasants bringing tribute to a medieval lord. Most owners have basic business sense to reserve the top level place for those willing to add a few extra dollars for a balcony. But egomania does strange things to a person. Without a family to speak of or even a pet, the old curmudgeon, whose completely forgotten name added some self-imposed mystery to the fun, was barely ever seen, only confirming signs of life by super continuing to get paid. In the umpteenth iteration of this most sacred ritual, Abby opened up her phone to verify the collections had come into her account, with a total rent of $6,000 and 4 roommates to speak of. She was responsible for receiving $1,200 per person and having the last fifth ready to come out of her checking account. She couldn't remember exactly which bet she'd lost against her roommate Pierre to end up with the job, but she regretted it each time. It wasn't so much the monthly reminder text she had to send, or even the 5-flight walk to drop off the check. The shitty part were those brief, delicious hours when her bank account would swell far past the usual size and offer a glimpse into financial stability. A number far larger than its real value that took her to a different, safer place. A place without that flinch of hesitation before agreeing to go out for brunch. Without the subway ride that would have made much more sense as the Uber ride and the part where it did financially. No matter how many late nights, early mornings, or out-of-the-way dates she took, she never had to do the unthinkable and put out her hand. Every dollar Abby earned was dragged from the city concrete, but they were hers and hers alone. It was a promise the day she lowered herself, taking that first and last loan from her parents to make the security deposit. A promise she'd written down her beloved rose gold notepad the day she paid her parents back with interest. It was the same book that contained the theaters she would one day perform in, the cities she would visit, the lives she would live. A book of dreams and promises. A sacred document she turned to for strength after a long day of odd jobs and audition prep. To say the operas hadn't been coming in would be implying they actually existed, somewhere in the ether, and she just wasn't having luck. While that may have been the objective truth, Abby was living in a longer, slower hell of the whole acting universe seeming to transport out of her reach. The one commercial she booked the previous year for a doomed office share company had been returning less and less in royalties, and the last of her show checks from Sins had run out. She returned to one of her New York all-stars, the phenomenal Janae, at the Boeheim Tech Agency, for some quick money gigs. Over a 2-week span, Abby had walked about 19 dogs, podcasted her way through 6 hours of receptionist duty, and even tried her hands as a mailroom worker for some law firm. Walking the halls of white man, and Jewish man was a fascinating exercise in constant interaction while somehow maintaining full visibility. Interesting time, but not one she wanted to repeat. Like every month, the money was earned and saved and dipped into very slightly to pay for the one extra night out, the details of which were always a little extra fuzzy. Like every month, casting lines were weighed in, audition rules were recorded over video call, and every email from her agent was like a light flashing in the dead of night in a slowly darkening forest. As she crossed the final letter on the check, the last few seconds of a monumental 3-minute task, Abby felt that she would need a break. Luckily, she knew someone who was just as free to talk and do other things as she was. She picked up her phone and hit her most recent FaceTime call. Hey, baby girl, how you doing? Just calling to get back from the gym. Oh, okay. Sorry. I can call you back when you've showered and everything. Nah, don't worry, Kola assured. Definitely didn't do enough to work up a real sweat. I'm getting way too damn lazy. Need to tighten up. Can't have the old guy belly popping out quite yet, you know? What about you? What are you up to? Oh, not much. Just finished the rent checkup and trying to figure out the best way to kill a little time. Figured you could help me with that, she proposed in her decidedly sultry voice. Hmm. Well, nah, doesn't that sound like a lovely time? But I can't pay it, not tonight. I need to do some bullshit slide deck. I'm actually not even sure who it's for or why we're doing it, but it's on my work stream and I'm betting someone's year-end bonus on the line. I thought the whole point of working an office job was that the work gets done in the office. Well, if I'd been better at managing my work, or if I gave a shit about this nonsense engagement, that would be the case. I'll make it up to you, babe, I promise. I'm sure you can find some way to kill your boredom in that wonderful apartment of yours. Pierre's doing some weird kombucha tasting thing. Samara's on tour somewhere in Maine, which, hilarious. And Yuki and Claire are probably making out at the bottom of some dive bar in Queens. Fuck buddy goals, honestly. Well, what about Maria? Yeah, I don't know what's up with her recently. She's always running around and getting in late. I don't think she's seen anybody because she hasn't said anything. She's literally told me about every dick she's come into contact with since moving day. Detail reviews, too, in case you were curious. I'm honestly amazed you think I've lived with Curtis for 3 years and haven't seen his dick yet. At least 6 different occasions, only one of which was consensual on both ends. Do I even want to ask? I'll defer to U.S. military protocol on that one. Hey, I'm sorry, but I gotta start getting up for dinner. You all right, though? You seem down. Oh, I'm fine. Thank you, though, babe. No, just need to get some sleep. Got to make some rounds tomorrow. See if any Gutterson's coming up. You know how it is. Good luck with your slide deck, though. All right, thanks, babe. Love you. Love you, too. The beeping singled the end of the call on the return back to the bright, messy, two-lived-in bedroom. In a few hours, it'll be another day alternated between running around town and lazing around the loft. Waiting, watching, waiting for the show to begin. The opening curtain in front of the crowd, living her ambitions. For the theme song to start blasting while she took the next step on the walk to stardom. Addie put the check in the marked white envelope and placed it in the corner of her dining table. There was nothing else to do. No one to kill time with. There was barely any weed left in the apartment to blow the rest of the night on. In the silence, she wanted to see one of those nights, one of those moments of inspiration, life-changing nights where the inspiration to get one shit together stampedes all over the laziness and fatigue of modern living. When plans get written up to the sound of 80s synth music and vision boards are formulated. She even thought about making this the night she finally had to write her own play, her own story. Then she had a better idea. Alexa, play Take Me Out from Rent the Musical. Oh, and what's the weather? Gonna get the right outfit. Alexa, stop. I should have thought. In a few hours, it'll be a new day, a better one, and a belly full of tequila and yuca fries sound like the way to start it off. Thank you. Alexa, stop. That could not have gone worse at the very end.
Like if people who are joining us, like something always happens on an episode. Typically it's either my dogs, we got 3, my coughing, I'm still dealing with like some post-COVID stuff. I had COVID in September and I still have this horrible cough. Something happens, but this homegrown, I think this is why, I have so many great followers because, well, one, in real life, I'm not completely polished to begin with. So people should not expect a perfectly polished podcast. So for Alexa to go the fuck off, I was like, yeah.
I love that. Wasn't even the right song. I know she was playing. Freaking.
Yeah!
Keep it on musical taste, everybody.
Hey, girl, what you doing?
2000s alt rock. I don't know. That's definitely where I stayed at.
Yes. Oh, but I cannot wait to get your book in hand. Like, just that one chapter, I'm just seeing like so many scenes. Like I'm actually, because I'm a playwright, and it's like I'm seeing the vignettes happening. I'm seeing the acting happening. So I hope as I, give all of my guests flowers and like manifest, somebody pick this up and adapt it into a screenplay.
It definitely, like, And for real, like when I was writing this, like all those years ago, like I really feel like so writers should read, and that's obviously true for business and personal reasons. But I can't lie, I've always loved TV and movies more than books. I read, but I watch a little bit more, and so I did genuinely like write this with that kind of like episodic momentum in mind, like a story each time, like a little vignette here, but a larger overall vision of the plot, of course, and like I wanted to capture moments, and I think that's like what inspired the structure of the story. Is like taking these moments in a year in this time of this character's life and compiling them into this larger thing. And so that is definitely, and this chapter in particular is about the Abby's point of view, not the main character, but the other main character, the better main character for some people. And it's her moment within Kola's story, but her own personal piece of it, and like her life outside of him. And I want to kind of share that with the audience to show that like it's about Kola, but it's about this time that he's living in with the people around him too. And Abby being one of the most important ones there.
Nice. And I really appreciate that you wrote both a male and a female protagonist, because when it comes to Black voices, especially, I feel like in this genre of, I'll say this genre of joy, this genre of our true realism, we don't really get these stories that often. Like I'm imagining, like as I was hearing you read, I heard Harlem, the Amazon Prime series, which for me, well, I heard Harlem, I heard a little bit of the series Soul, not the movie, but the series Soul Food, and I also heard a little bit of Living Single. And for me, those series exist and sit within a very unique Black joy where, yes, they go through their struggles, but there's always this like light at the end. They always have, a way to live and live abundantly. And so when I was hearing you read, I saw those like three series playing in my head. And I was just like, oh, and then also too, it was bringing me back to, and we'll eventually get into the questions, but it also brought me back to, I grew up and loved like Living Single, Girlfriends, The Game. So like the late 1990s, 2000s, where, and I still need to write that book when I finish my dissertation, but it's like that whole like situating and like sitting in Black joy, and what does that mean, and existing in these worlds where we are the dominant figure. So I love already just the chapter that you share with us, and I'm like, I can't wait to get the book and see where the rest of this lives.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, Abby's a big part of the story. Kola is, the main, but I want to kind of take a lot of Black experience and a lot of broader millennial ones too, and just kind of have them happen within this like moment in time and this year in this life of this one person.
Yeah. So Itua, the first official question that I have for you is, I'd like to start off by asking the origin story of Parade of Streetlights, and then what is the story behind the title?
So the origin story of the book is that I really have always been captivated by these stories about coming of age. I'm the kind of person who like one of those Stephen King movies, like Stand By Me or something like that, or like all those shows like Black coming of age television and movies, Boys in the Hood, The Wood, all that. And I wanted to capture a specific, relatable experience of that kind of like Black joy focus, like Black like achievement in terms of, when you do these things in life, when you go to school like your parents told you to, when you do all those things, and when you, I don't know if I say like achieve a certain success level, but more like when you check off all the boxes, right? Like all the boxes society gives you and your parents give you. Like finding yourself past that point is, because I was living that in real time. Of course, I was just out of school, fresh out of undergrad, no job yet, but I was like, interviewing all that. And I wanted to capture this moment where like, I want to think about my future in terms of the building blocks of my life that were being formed, and like what that's going to be like going forward. So it was about capturing a moment where like I was living, and I could see people around me living, and like getting that feeling like we are all in this quarter life crisis kind of moment. And it's relatable if you lived it. So everyone who was 20 at one point in their lives, and it's relatable, if you are going to be that soon. But that's kind of the origin of why I wanted to write it. But the title itself was based around, I'm interested in like parallel motion, because there's this thing where like, you're walking down the street, and the street's doing its own thing. It's buildings are there, or houses, or people are walking around you, and you're moving against the earth, and the earth is moving against you, but you don't feel it because obviously you're tiny, the earth is massive. But I was walking down Fifth Avenue one day, and I just imagined, what would it be like if I could really feel the streetlights above me going over my head as I'm standing still? Like if I was the one who's stuck in the motion above me, like being stuck at a certain point. And it hit me like that's what it kind of feels like for Kola. When I was writing the book, I was doing this, like being stuck in that moment of time, in that point in his life where he's done things A through Z, and he's still feeling this emptiness because he hasn't really done what he needs for himself, and having the streetlights go above your head while you're walking down the street. So it's the parade of things over you, it's the movement around you, it's the earth under you. I just wanted to capture being stuck, and I thought that having the streetlights move in a straight march over you evoked that for me. So that's where the title kind of came from.
Nice. Can you share with us a little bit of insight into your writing process? You talked a little bit at the beginning, giving us, like when you kind of started the book. So can you talk a little bit about writing Parade of Streetlights? I do remember reading something where you've been working on this for some time. So if you wanted to share with us a little bit about
Yeah.
writing the book and the developmental process.
So my biggest thing was writing it. I'm like a very big all or nothing kind of writer. Sometimes it's like I have these 20-hour bombs of like I can't really stop. Like I have a story, I'm gonna take a break, I'm gonna do this and then that. And it's just like when I was, this is not unexplained. Like this is when I was, more time on my hands, less things to do. So it was a thing where it was constantly like, I'm just gonna write until my brain shuts off, and it didn't for a long time. And then there'd be another day where it's like I can barely put a page together. I remember one specific instance where I wrote 3 chapters in a day, and only 2 of them were any good. And so, okay, well, there's a lot of words. I have to scrap all this, but I was able to get the thing out. And I wrote one really good chapter over the course of like a week. And it's not so much that that's like a great way to do things, but it's more that like I feel I'm a very inspiration-driven person. If I get the idea, the best thing for me is to immediately start writing it. So I have the notes out. Whenever I think of something, I'm like, okay, let me just get this on, because if it's gone, who knows when it'll come back. And I want to get more structure in my writing life, but that was how I was writing this book for sure. And then writing Prince in particular, not only because of the time I was living in, because the story it really felt like I was kind of capturing things that were happening in my head, like the dialogue in the story. A lot of it felt like kind of like a podcast in my head, like a conversation in a room with these people, and I was kind of in the background of the party and just getting everything down. And like I feel like dialogue flows the best when you feel like you're talking to somebody else saying the same words. It's like acting with yourself. Not full on talking to myself all the time, thankfully, but just being able to have that conversation, like Kola would say this, and then he definitely say that for sure, and then he's saying this, and like I know Abby would say that to his face, and like she ain't taking no shit, and like just kind of knowing your characters. And once you know your characters, once you understand it, that like that becomes easy to grow. So that's kind of like how it felt to write the settings, the dialogue, just capturing moments, and really trying to have like an image reel and a conversation in my head all the time. That's kind of like the best way I write personally. Hope that answered the question.
It did very nicely. And it segues really nicely into the next question. So we ask all our guests why they write. Your response to this prompt was, I write because characters allow me new chances to examine life, new eyes to appreciate the world I walk around, being able to create an entire story experience and innately understand the person going through it drives me. Writing in these times is about creating insight insight out of madness and having a voice for its own sake. There's a responsibility to be loud with our truths if it means that even one person will find them empowering. I think that's why writing is important to me. That's already an award acceptance speech, just FYI. So, what experiences and truths are important to you to explore, discover, and uncover in your work? What insights have you discovered out of the madness that brought you to writing? And then, because I always ask these really big questions, who's your ideal audience? And then who do you want to connect with? Who do you want to have connect with your work and why?
A lot in there. All right, so let me start off with the first bit there. So I am big on human behavior, both in public and private, and I'm really big on understanding the ways people react to things in moments in time where either they're most stressed or they have the most to gain, and just kind of combining factors to create human outcomes. In this story, a good example of that is kind of the ways that Kola deals with this dual purpose he has of, I'm living this life that I've done everything in my power to create for myself, and I wanted it, and I still kind of want it, but I don't know why I want it. I don't even know when I started to want it. And so I have this other dream of mine that is just going to take all this and maybe move it to the wayside, but it's what I feel like I want to do. And those diverting interests and diverting passions is kind of getting to the root of why it's a struggle. Like everyone says, follow your dreams, because that's what we all hear from movies and TV and everything. Like do what, like follow your dream. But it's like, I did a lot of work to get this corporate job, and I put a lot of time in. And yeah, it's not saving the world, and I don't feel fulfilled every day, but I get to have nice things, and I get to, I mean, it sounds, materialistic, but it's true. I get to have brunch with my friends and all that stuff, and I don't know. Then again, I'm not fulfilled inside, so maybe I should go do the other thing. Like that kind of human question that we're told what the answer is in pop culture. We're told that the best solution is to do the thing that's most passionate, but is that what you're gonna do? And I have another short story I wrote. It was kind of more darker than this, a little less lighthearted, but it was about this dystopian future where you think 1984, Hunger Games, whatever version, float your boat. But the story is about these two brothers, and one of them is just a guy living in this world. Just has a job, works for some kind of government thing, does his life. The other one is this person who joined this radical freedom fighter cell. And, in any version of the story, most of them, like the guy who's fighting the big bad government's the hero. And obviously to that extent, he definitely is in some senses, but it's also this question of why is the other person villainized, or why are they seen as being wrong for just trying to survive day to day in a life where they get to have a good existence. And yeah, it's selfish and it's a little bit non-moral focused, but it's also real. And I'm not a moral relativist. I do believe in right or wrong, but it's more so that I like to explore the human interactions with situations. So that's kind of what drives me to talk about truth and exploring them, is what will we really like when the doors are closed? What are people doing? Is a selfish person selfish because something's bad, or because that's how people are? And those kind of deeper questions. So what I really don't like to do, and then my novel is not a hero story, so there's no real villains or heroes, but I do like to have characters who are making choices constantly and constantly having to explore them in character, in detail, in time. So that's kind of what drives that part of my writing process. The next one, insights if I spread the madness. So I think as far as insights into the mad times, just kind of why it's a millennial story too, but we'll get into that later. We are living in an age where I don't believe the human brain was prepared for the world we have right now. We have a hyper, constantly individualized, constantly mass-produced information stream available at any given time of day. We are living in global markets where you can pretty much buy anything you want and go anywhere, and also say anything and not do anything, but just the amount of options and choices and things you can do that are both productive and not productive. It's just this insane barrage. And I think one thing that I focus on in my writing is the madness of constantly having to navigate this stream of endless chances to better word, like fuck up, or like endless chances to just kind of like lose yourself in the stream of all this, like in the madness of the political atmosphere and the hypercharged, like all the racial issues we have in our country, all of the like constant stream of negative energy and negative news, and not say that that shouldn't be talked about, but more like it's just constancy. I think that's the word. It's constant everything all the time, everywhere. And that we need to have like moments where we can like understand the world around us. And I think that my way of doing that is through writing. And I think it's more so help me like pause and really critically break down the world I'm living in and what I'm seeing. I've written about like political news. I've written about like protests and understanding the history of how we got here and understanding like, okay, like this is a specific like level of understanding America's issues that we can like explore deeper in terms of, it's kind of good, but in terms of what exactly are we prepared to do about this? Are we actually going to have real progress in terms of conversations and legal solutions, or are we just going to have this constant fighting over and over again? So I think that's kind of the insight and the madness I want to explore, and just kind of breaking down my role in that as a writer is just I want to have my truth out there. And lastly, my ideal audience. My ideal audience for this book, for any book I write, is for this book, it's definitely about people who've experienced moments in life when they're in their 20s, you know, as adults, just kind of find themselves. I think it's relatable to a lot of people. I definitely wrote this book as an African-American and African immigrant story. It's definitely important to me that that's like front and center, but I think it's relatable to anyone who's kind of been at a point in time where they haven't known what they want their life to be. In general, I do tend to have a younger audience, like 20s and 30s, but I hope people in their 40s, 50s can relate to what I'm saying because they've lived this. And if you know, even if you're not living that in 2017 moment with your iPhone and social media, you know, you definitely had a version of that. You had a version of trying to figure out who you were when, you know, you had even less of this information age going on, but still had the same problems. So that's what I hope to get for. And ultimately, I hope people connect with it because, I mean, I think I focus on writing characters, and that's my like driving goal. Every writer does, of course, but that's like what makes it fun for me. So if you connect to Kola, I hope you connect with the story. And that's kind of what I'm going
for. Nice. Excuse me, here's that cough, and it's been coming.
No worries.
In terms of the book's protagonist, and you and I had a chance to talk a little bit about this, like the cultural reference. Why do you think it's important to situate a Black man at the center of this story? And then how does your own experience as both being Nigerian and then Nigerian in the United States inform the ways, and also a Nigerian who was raised in the United States, inform the ways that you wrote this lead character?
So this is a story about, to a large degree, expectations. It's about what did you expect your life to be at this point? Why did you want it to be that way? And did you expect to feel a certain way at this moment in time? And if not, how can you change that? And those sound like therapy questions. But the actual point of them is, what do you believe people should be saying about you? And does that matter in terms of what you think about yourself? Like Kola, as a Black man in America, has achieved, by what is unfortunately the case, extraordinary success. He is very well employed. You know, he lives on his own. He's like had a good education, done things well, and like it's not so much that he like was just smarter or whatever than anybody. He just has this life now and he's built it for himself. And it's this thing where like at a certain level, you know, I want to talk about Black people who are living this experience, not in the stereotypical negative way that America portrays a Black experience. But I also didn't want to be about some like talented, tense type, whatever type of thing I'm talking about. Like I wanted to explore being a Black man, living this kind of like, I'm expected to be a certain way. I've done things to not be a certain way, but also like, what does that matter? And also more important, like as a Nigerian person, like expectations we have from our family and our culture on academic excellence. Like I've done those things too, and to achieve what my parents' bare minimum was. And that's my personal experience, of course. course. But I thought it was important to have a Black person living an experience of Black joy, but also a moment of like, as a Black person, not knowing if they should channel their life towards a direction that's going to move them up in this quote unquote established order, or like do their own thing, like freedom of that movement, like not being chained down to this singular societal path that's constructed in a white society to succeed in a certain type of way, with certain kind of objectives, and to break out of that. And Kola is not explicitly having these questions because he feels like white society is making him do a certain thing, but it is a part of it where his whole life he's been the one Black person in the room in the white classroom. He's had the one other Black employee or Black coworker. Like, he's always in the white spaces. He's always strived to be in more spaces that are unfortunately even more white occupied. And it's a question of, is this what my life's supposed to actually be? Or should I make my own path that is not what the society tells me I should want, or even my parents tell me I should want? So in immigrant household, those kind of questions don't really get asked. A big part of Abby's thing is also that she's an actress, so she's more on the beaten path than Kola, and her parents definitely made a big deal out of it. And that I know for sure when I eventually try to write full time and I have a job and I have the same question with my parents about that, but we'll get there when we get there. But I think it was important to have a story of expectations feature a Black man living through his own society's own, and Nigerian person grappling with the very real hyper high ones we have in our own households, or at least that's my experience of it. So that's kind of why I made sure this was the focal character.
You refer to Parade of Streetlights as being written as millennial fiction. Can you share more insight into the genre? You talked a little bit about it earlier, and then a little bit more about why was Parade of Streetlights written as millennial fiction?
So for me, millennial fiction is stories centered around those 2000s, 2010s, those feelings of being in a generation where, again, we were kind of forced into the digital age without knowing it. We went from one day having these little plastic things you could text your friends really complicated messages on to, I can learn anything in the world and none of it's true because it's all lies on the internet. And it's like, we went through, recessions and major political upheavals and things like that. Not saying we're the first generation to do that, but millennials have this certain experience. And it goes back to what I enjoy about writing, which is taking moments in time and exploring the people within them. So for me, the most relatable moment is, of course, the one I lived through. Being in this 2017 New York City, this exact life I wanted to have for myself at that point in time, and talking about that story. And also being able to relate that to people who were in my same age or weren't living in New York. Like, it's not just in New York. No, it's supposed to be about capturing that time where you just don't know why or even where you are, wherever you are, how you ended up there, why you did it this way, and like why you wanted it to be like this. And I think millennials in particular had this, like, that they talk about, like, we didn't graduate on time. We're not going to own houses. Our jobs are mad. We spent too much time at toast. Generationally speaking, we have this sense that we were stunted a bit growth-wise. And so a lot of people in my generation, more so than others ones, feel stuck in certain places. So that is also a part of what inspired me, is that, if you're in your 20s and you don't know why you haven't gotten that wedding ring or that promotion, or you don't know when you're going to feel happy, you do have those things. That's kind of what I want to talk about too. So in a book about being stuck in time and about moments in time, I think a generation that feels like it was more stuck than usual made sense to write about. And also, I definitely did want to have my own life reflected. And 1995, that's what I am. So I'm proud about it.
Yeah, because you mentioned the thing. So I'm on the cusp. I was born in 79. And it's like millennials, the things that you have witnessed, which you're right. And I didn't think about that. It was like you legit had social media and all this technology hoisted at you. It's like, nope, you don't have a choice. Me, I'm from the generation of Facebook came when I was in graduate school. I didn't necessarily have to be on Facebook, but then I kind of chose it. Whereas millennials, it feels like everything has been hoisted at you without a choice. And then also too, when you look at the things that have happened in your life, and this goes into the next question that I have for you, which I'm jumping around, the things that millennials not only have witnessed but have ignited, especially around the Black Lives Matter movement, and then everything about like trans lives, and then 9/11 happened, and like the two financial crises, and he who shall not be named was president, and COVID. Like, y'all haven't even had a chance to breathe, to be like, okay, because at least with me, Gen Xers, we had like my formative years, which were like the 90s, early 2000s, there wasn't a lot of major world upheaval. Whereas for millennials, it's like, holy shit, like every 5 seconds, something trying to change and like literally, like I feel like the fourth horseman is just waiting on the sidelines, like, yo, I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready to go. So it's like, now I understand why you centered your work around millennial fiction, because it feels like it is the generation that needs the most autonomy. And also, too, don't even get me on Roe v. Wade, but it's like that has the least autonomy. But yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely like this sense that as this group of people from very different backgrounds, but united by being in the same time period, like we have all collectively had just less control over things, and we've had lives go certain ways for reasons that we don't have to talk about. Like if you graduated, I mean, I'm younger, I'm 1995, so that's like Gen Z millennial cusp. If you graduated in '08, that like what's your life? How many years of your life were like taken off asunder because of the recession? Like how many things went wrong because that person was in office? Like how many things went crazy in different countries? Like things we're dealing with over there, like in that period of time. Like I wanted to see like it's a story about autonomy, and that's a great. I'm gonna use that for all my stuff now. Autonomy in the face of this constant barrage of things being done for you, through you, by other people. Like your society, your parents, your background have made you a certain way, and in this journey particularly, that happened so much quicker and so much heavier because of what happened outside of us, that I don't know if a lot of millennials ever stop to breathe and realize we can just make our life whatever you want to do. Like you can just have a new life. Like it's, you know, I'm not saying this is in the world, but it is, that's a thing you can do. You can literally just take your life as it is and start over again. It's hard and it's difficult and it seems insane, but you always have that choice. And no one ever, I don't think enough people in my generation have like asked that question, like, is this really what I wanted to do? And why have I not taken it to change that? So I love autonomy. I'm going to steal that blatantly from you for that, but it's definitely captured what I'm trying to say, for sure.
Yeah, please steal that. Because one of the things that's so important to me is autonomy. And I think it's because I grew up in that generation where, and I still can't believe we're this many years apart. My brother is around your age. And it's like, you know, I grew up where my parents were like, okay, we grew up in a very stifled background. Nicole, we're gonna let you do your thing. Like I was allowed to be a music major. My parents embraced it. They were like, you can be an artist and you will eventually get your life, you know, you'll eventually, you know, the joy happens first and then the money will come. Yeah. And so like whereas with my brother, my parents were more helicopter-y with my brother, whereas me, they were just like, oh, yep, you can go ahead and do your own thing. And I've always wondered, because we're 15 years apart, like why is there that generational difference? And I worked, you know, I spent some time, and I also teach, working in higher education. And like I'm so glad like laws like FERPA and all that exist, because millennials and their parents, I'm like up here wanting to do their children's laundry, fight their fight. I'm like, yo, I can't talk to you. I love FERPA. I'm like, I can't talk to you. Like, get your child in here. Like, I have a student, this was so long ago. who I fired. The mom called me 5 seconds later talking about some, can you, no, I can't, FERPA, I can't talk to you. And so it's just like, again, like I always wonder like why millennials and this lack of autonomy. I did one time, and then I'll go on to the next question. I did one time have a Lyft driver say to me, we were just, talking, it was a long trip. She was like, my daughter is 23 years old. And I helicoptered like it was no joke because my life was a mess. And now her life is a mess and she doesn't want anything to do with me. And so I'm just like, okay, why? I'm like, millennials parents, like, why are you? I just want to be like, why are y'all like this? Like, I
Right.
just.
That's a good question. I'll ask my mom. She's not actually all I got. She's just Nigerian, so it was pretty much just get straight A's and whatever you do is fine. As long as that.
Wow.
I mean, I was the only kid in football who was worried about not playing football with the grades. That's all I'll say. That's like, I was like, oh man, if I don't get a good grade, I'm done. I'm about to be captain of the team. I'm not able to play. It was tough out there.
Yes, and you went to Georgetown too. I'm like,
who worked? And I'll never forget. This is nothing. Well, this is my one last side story. I'll never forget because I played football high school and I broke my leg senior year, second game, which is bad, not a good time. But I didn't get to whatever. All my college football dreams were out the window at that point. Like I don't care. I'm going to school for Georgetown or some good school I was trying to get into. It was like I'm fine. So I get into Georgetown. I'm all done, happy, all that stuff. And this one teacher walked up to me and says, "I can't believe you still got a football scholarship after you broke your leg." I was like, I didn't though. Didn't happen. Just got in the good old fashioned way. I just remember thinking like, wow, that's tough. And it's like, I thought we were. I mean, they were all nice. But he was being nice. But I could tell like he really thought that's how I got into school. And I was like, nah, man, it's not like that. It's not. My parents punished me into doing school. It worked out pretty well. Sorry, no one to rag on my parents. I love them. They're great. Love you, mom and dad.
yes.
But it worked. It worked out well for everybody.
Yes.
I could talk about being Nigerian
I love it.
You have the next question. I'm sure.
Yes. What have you learned about yourself while writing Parade of Streetlights?
Yeah.
What advice would you offer to both the younger Itua and the future Itua on producing a manuscript of this magnitude?
So I think the biggest thing about myself is that I get overwhelmed more than I thought I did. I can't lie to you. I think when it was just the writing, everything seemed so not easy because it was hard to write a decent manuscript at first, but it seemed so, okay, if I just keep writing, eventually I'll get it right. And that's all it was, just I will write. And I felt like, okay, it's actually not so bad. Why is this so, I was so arrogant in my youth 5 years. Like, writing's, you're right. If you're good at it, it should be whatever. But that was me being my dumbest self. And then I realized, wait a minute, I can write, but I need to understand how to keep things together. It's not just about action, it's about having a larger vision. So I had to start outlining and building things up more, understanding how to craft things around just kind of the explosion of ideas you have. So I learned about myself that I'm really good at just doing a thing, but I need to have an order around it to be successful with it. And that's applied to a lot of things in my life. I'm with working out, I'm really good at just getting to the gym. I'll go, but I have to have a workout plan. I have to have a structure to the workout. I'm not good at that part. I'm really good at doing my job, but I'm not the best at the networking or the career growth business. So having that be intentionally let me focus on the building around action is important. And for writing, it's about the outline, it's about the character notes, it's about what is the overall story here, what are the details I got to get right. So I tell my younger self, just think more about when you're doing a craft like this, what is your organize around key ideas, key themes, key character beats. Don't just think because your writing is seamless, it's gonna, or not seamless. Your writing is it's flowing, that it's gonna flow in anywhere constructive. So I would tell myself to embrace structure, embrace crafting around just the action of writing. And for my older self, I'd say really understand how to craft your schedule around this. Because one big thing is, again, I wrote this first draft, no job, nothing, just hours. You come home from work and there's a TV in front of you and there's dinner and there's like, well, I could just not write. And then you don't. And then it's a week later, you haven't written another word. And so it's like that part of it was, again, I was pretty arrogant in my head. I thought, oh, okay, I'll just do this on the weekends when I'm working. Or at night, I have 5 hours. When I get home, I'll write for 2 hours. You will not. So the biggest thing is, if I could have had 5 years ago the structure ability to like craft outlines better, and then in the future develop over time like the ability to schedule myself with that hour here, that 2 hours here, that let's not go out this one night, maybe do a little bit more of this, because you're going to be hung over the next morning, not right then. This is a peek into my weekends actively as they're happening in my life. So that I think is what I want to build up. But I think one thing for me is like, I know that when the passion for the story is there, it finds a way. Like I do have stories I'm more passionate about others, and when I find the one that's like really speaking to me, I'm able to kind of lock in more and be more like I was in those 7 months in 2018. Just like more, just I'm engaged, I'm involved, and that's really driving me. So yeah, hopefully in a couple of years I'm back on this podcast with book number 2. After
with another book.
Exactly. That's the goal. That's the dream right there. But yeah, that's what I tell myself: structure and scheduling, and the rest for me, it comes easier. And if I guess people who don't write as like bombs away, just 500 words a day. If you can do that, eventually you'll get something.
Yeah, and because in terms of my own writing, when I'm not dissertating, it's like I can't get words on the page. So when I hear someone be like, I wrote this many chapters in one day, I'm like, I can barely get a sentence on the page in a week. I'm just like, you're doing something right. And even if it's not good,
yeah, that part.
Right, just the fact that you're able to generate content in that period of time is amazing.
There's one thing, I'm not a perfectionist, and I do want to be better at that too, but it helps the beginning part to not be one sometimes. Perfectionists are really great at the end because you need to be one that, but at the beginning, you just gotta start something.
Yeah, and speaking of starting somewhere, you first began writing in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Why did the writer emerge during this particular time? What was your first project? And then how has your writing evolved since first discovering you had this gift?
Mm-hmm. So 2016 for me was junior year of college. Well, the end of junior year starts the whole year, and of course that part in November. So what really happened for me was over the course of that year, just starting to see like that my life had been collecting building blocks, and I remember having that exact moment, like, okay, like I'm about to be senior in college next year, and then that's it. And then after that, I could end up in a million different life paths, and I don't know which one I want to follow. And I felt like at the time, like I liked to write. I wrote things for school and like for extra school projects, and like I'd even had one poem in the high school literary journal, but it was just something I wrote for English class that they really liked, and they put it in there. It's like, okay, that's cool. I guess I'm good at this. But I hadn't thought of writing as like a way to express something that was on my mind. It was more so a thing to do on a piece of paper for like a score or like a grade. So when I started writing as an expressive outlet, it was because I had this realizing, like, I think about life in ways that revolve around like, what am I doing now? What I want to be doing? Like, where am I going? What am I driving towards? And like writing stories around that seemed natural because I enjoyed the process of creating literature or creating words on a page. And I could create words around that sensation of thinking about the future, where I was going. And to that note, my first story was about being in college. It was about being a college freshman. It was a story about a kid who wakes up in the wrong campus. He goes out all night, gets too drunk, wakes up in the wrong school, doesn't know where he is his first weekend in college, which has happened to people. It's not the criticism of the world, but it was about kind of that overwhelming feeling of freedom and realizing, okay, like this is an insane thing I'm doing. Let's calm it down. It was about kind of like, okay, this kid wakes up and he's know where he is. He has to run around campus. He realizes he's never been here before. In high school is when it happened to him, and just kind of capturing a moment where I was a couple years before that moment, 2016, where I had too much freedom and not control to do with it. That was the first story I ever wrote, and why I think it was important to write that story first and help me out a lot, because I thought I had to be funny with my writing. I thought I had to be really like comedic and very much like almost not serious, because my first ever story was just more comedy, but the feeling behind it was more being lost and being adrift kind of after having everything controlled for so long. I didn't know how to express that more sincere, so I wrote this very funny story about a hangover. Everyone liked it. I thought it was funny, but I think the one thing I improved the most on from that point in 2016 was being able to like just speak more intimately with myself and not have to like mask it all in humor. Like Parade of Streetlights is a funny book. There is comedy in there. I think it's funny. But it's also very sincere. Like the chapter I read today had some jokes, had some lines in it, but it was about a moment with Abby alone in a bedroom, really thinking about the fact she's never going to have much money in her bank account. And like, that's not a very happy thought, not a happy place to be in, but it's a sincere moment of reflection. I wanted to really understand how to be more of that without having to like be insecure about it. I think, I don't know if it's as a man, I was having trouble being emotionally secure with myself, or just kind of like as a writer, I didn't feel ready to be serious. But I definitely got more in depth and less jokey with my dialogue and my writing since that time.
Parade of Streetlights is published by Read Ferociously. Can you talk about your relationship with your publisher and how they acquired your book?
Yeah, so they are very, very helpful with first-time writers, because one thing is I didn't know what a sales sheet was. I didn't know about industry proof. I didn't know about like marketing or anything like that. All I knew was if I wrote it and it's good, hopefully someone will pick it up. So they've been really helpful in terms of like just help me understand what the writing industry is about, publishing, how to actually kind of market yourself and your work to an audience, how to actually understand what you wrote and how to label it. They've also been really good with just kind of giving me a platform to be myself as an author. Like editing was great with them because they were very much like, it's your vision, your story, we just want to have some structure around it more so. This chapter is not the best, but do you like it? Because we'll keep it if you like it. I was like, you know, you're right, not the best. You can get rid of it. And just being like more collaborative than commanding, I think, is their biggest strength. So they've been great. They're an indie publisher out in New Jersey. They're really great to work with. They do a lot of like poetry and short stories. I think I'm one of their first more so full like novels, but they've been helpful with that process too. So it's been really cool to work with them on it. And I'm definitely excited to keep partnering with them as this book goes on. Actually, so how they acquire me, like I said, I don't know if I said on here, but basically I wrote 2018, and then 2019 I had a publishing contract. I actually had a publishing contract with a different publisher like 4 years ago. So and this is part of my youthful luck. I was finishing my first draft in November 2017. A month later, I had a publisher because the third person I emailed said yes. I thought, oh, well, that was easy. And then so I had a publisher for like 2 years, but the problem was, and I won't say the publisher's name or what happened, but the publisher closed down. The company shut down. So they were done. Yeah, unfortunately. So I lost the contract. They gave me the advance, very nice stuff. I lost the contract and I was left adrift. And it was tough because I actually had the deal. I actually had a date to have a book published. I was supposed to actually have it, I guess, around 2020, but actually out in the stores. And to go like 2 years or 3 years without having that after you've already had it because of things that weren't in your control was really tough. So I felt kind of adrift. I didn't really know if I wanted to keep writing anymore, but I that's when all of my other work came out. So it was also kind of good because I got the chance to dive into like essays and articles and poetry more and like do other writing forms during that time between my first deal and my next deal. And so Read Furiously, I emailed them in December 2019, or before COVID started. And then I didn't get any response back until August 2021. So from 2019 to August 2021, for about 2 years, I just had nothing. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, by the way, we had a COVID pause, but we loved your manuscript. Can you please come back? Like, yeah, I'll check my schedule. Yeah, please, anything, please, literally anything. So then we had some conversations. I like their vibe. They liked my writing. They loved Kola's story, and they were very like focused on making sure it was delivered in a way that reflected my voice the most, and that's the biggest thing. So they've been great. They came in at the last minute when I was like, this novel's not getting published. It's fine. It's my unpublished work. It's whatever. And then they came in and said, we want this in the world. And now it's going out there.
Nice. I love, because I like Black Writers Read. We've been fortunate that, because we had another writer on whose initial publishing house closed. And it's sad when that happens. But almost every writer that we've had on, we've had a couple on who have not been published yet. But those who have been published, they have such beautiful relationships with their publishers. And I absolutely love hearing that. I love hearing that. And this leads me into my next question. And I do hope that your second project is with them as well. What is next for you, and how can the Black Writers Read community support you on this journey?
So, book sales come out June 6th, so please don't give an order if you feel so inclined. I love hearing reviews, not just to drive up sales, but I personally love getting reviews just to know like how people actually respond to the story, how people really respond to the character. So I'd love more engagement on that. You can follow me on my IG. I don't know if it's in this thing here, but there you go. And I'll be hearing about this book and all that news there. But yeah, I'm the kind of person who loves to hear from the audience. So if you loved it, let me know. If you didn't like it, I would like to hear that too. Honestly, I would. I'm definitely like, just want to know who will respond to the book, and also look out for some more essays coming out in the future, and hopefully in about a year's time, highly 2 years time, we'll see. But book number 2 is gonna be coming out. But yeah, June 6th it comes out. I'll be doing some more events. I will be hopefully going to bookstores around the tri-state area sometime soon. And if you're in New York or in New Jersey, come out and see me. I'll let y'all know where I'm at.
Yeah, and I was just in New York City a couple of days ago, and I was like, do I reach out? I haven't met him yet. Because I was in New York seeing a couple of shows, and I was like, but I think the next time
you do, yeah. I mean,
the next time I come out, I will.
You're Rhode Island? Connecticut.
Yep, I'm Connecticut. I'm really close.
Got it. All right, that's cool. I will definitely want to link up in the future sometime for sure.
Yay!
All right, well, all right. Any other questions from me?
There were no questions that came in, but I hope this was a fruitful conversation. I believe we're like the second conversation you've had on your book launch. I hope that this is a very fruitful book tour. I'm looking forward to other podcasts that you're on, other interviews. I hope to meet you in person one day and get my copy autographed. I'm just saying.
Absolutely. All right, Nicole, thank you so much for this conversation.
Yes, Itua, it's so great to meet you, and thank you so much for being on. And I'll be in touch soon because, of course, we have the audio podcast we'll be posting in a couple of days, and just to stay in touch to hear about the progress of your book.
All right, no, for sure. Sounds good. Hopefully, I have good news for you.
Yay! And I hope Homegirl doesn't come back on with some more music as we're coming wrap it up. She's gonna do the wrap it up music. Be like, hey, I'm not gonna call it.
Cool. Play some Jay-Z, play some France for man. Man, look good out here. Yes. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, audience. And that was weird, but it's been a pleasure.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. And I'm gonna do some more wrap up. So have a great rest of your Sunday, and I'll be in touch soon. Thank you. So Black Writers Read, we are in the process. We are wrapping up season 3 on Saturday, June 10th, not Juneteenth. I'm taking a break on Juneteenth this year. We're wrapping up season 3 on Saturday, June 10th with Kimberly Mack, who will be here to discuss her newest book, Living Colors Time's Up, which is about the iconic Black rock band's album of the same name. Please be sure to find us on Instagram at Black Writers Read for more details about this last episode. Also, please be sure to go on to Instagram to find out about our virtual book club. 4 of the authors that we've had on for seasons 2 and 3, we're going to be reading their books over the summer, one a month, and then each of the authors will be joining us for the live discussion over Zoom. The first one is going to be Enzo Salon Seren's American Scapegoat, which is poetry, and that is scheduled for Sunday, June 25th. Also, to be on the lookout, I've been working with Fungi, Teacher Wagawa's company, Artist Dynamics, on a Black Writers Read website. That will be hitting the scene in the next couple of weeks. Find out, for the time being, find out more about Black Writers Read and my other work at NicoleMYoung.com. Please be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel to keep up with episodes of both Black Writers Read and my other work. Also, be sure to subscribe to the audio podcast, which is available on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Subscribing to the podcast and downloading makes a huge difference in terms of me garnering support, garnering sponsorships, and garnering other financial contributions. So please, please do that. So thanks for all of you for spending your afternoon with us, and more importantly, for ensuring that Black authors continue to matter. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks so much.